Okay,
Yeah.
welcome back to our interview series with Georges. And just so you know, Georges is not just an amazing genius astrologer, he's actually a narcissism expert and trauma detox specialist. Um, and if you want, Georges, I can post the interview you had with Harry about your experience with um, covert narcissism, and I can put that in the description below. But it's something that really needs to be talked about. It's as to paraphrase Oscar Wilde, the evil that dare not speak its name. It's so elusive, invisible, but it's there. You know, it's a bit like the mafia. It's when you're in the mafia, they say, "No, let's not talk about this because we don't exist." you know, um, you know, the number one rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. You know, and um, it's kind of like a weed in the garden that needs to be stripped out, but you don't know where it is, where to find it, where to begin. You know, and perhaps you would like to begin with defining it simply in your own terms.
You started it off very well. Thanks. This is a very good introduction. So this has been called many things by many people. Before we called it narcissism, most people that actually try to research into the disease that we see all around them, the disease that they see that people are just not there. It's like something's missing. Like there's just an automated response system operating without a soul, without empathy, without caring how you feel. Everyone in the Western society grows up with this system, and they call it the vertigo virus. Media once made up this term sociopathy. So people are afraid of other people, and they don't have any social skills. They don't care about other people. So they treat them like objects. This is the main thing where we are hitting the issue as a society that everyone is treated like an object. We treat the human experience like an object, like a material tool as a means to an end. And that end is usually financial, health, prestige, fame, status. It's very goal-oriented society. You get into school and you get told, oh, you have to go. Don't care what you feel about that. And you better make sure you perform. Otherwise, you're going to get disabled for life. You're not going to be even allowed to go into the higher circles. Opportunities will be denied to you if you do not perform as we need you to. And you have to put your feelings aside and ignore them. And it's all about the goal. It's always about the goal. No matter what you feel, it's not important. And
That
that's
sounds very
the core.
mechanical, essentially, and dehumanizing.
Yeah, the whole society has been inflicted by this narcissism virus. But people don't call it narcissism, they don't know, but it is narcissism. It
Mhm.
is not called by them because it's not acknowledged. There's not even an acknowledgement that there's a problem in the first place. People don't even question the system. They just think, you have to do this, so do it. And if you don't, then you're weak and
Yeah,
you are less than.
yeah. I think this can apply to many children. Like for instance, when I went to school, I felt this visceral, intense dread about going to school. Like, no, I would rather die than actually go to school. It was that visceral and intense. And of course, it's like, oh no, you're being too sensitive. You're too sensitive. You just have to do it. You know, everyone does it. So shut the fuck up and go to school. And I was like, oh, thanks for emotionally murdering me. Thanks for that. And when you get other people telling you the same thing, like this avalanche of social pressure in order to not feel a certain way that's screaming at you, then you feel like, okay, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I need to completely stuff my emotions so I can actually fucking survive in this world, you know, and be accepted.
And why is this narcissism now? Why do we call it that? Well, there has been a lot of scholars, and in the literature, one name I like to return to is Alexander Lowen. He made some books on narcissism where he speaks about the fact that the narcissism at the core is all about the split between the human and his feelings. The human is always in the head of a narcissist. I had some people who describe this as like I'm beheaded. My head is on a plate, my body is here, but there's no connection between them. So that's how the narcissist kind of operates, but everything is completely head focused, whatever the body intelligence is communicating for emotions, feelings. It is completely detached from. Okay, but if they are detached, why are they so psychopathic? Why are they so angry? Why do they rage at me? Why are they so sensitive to criticism? Why are they so fragile? Obviously, they're not detached in that moment.
Mm.
That's because the way they detach is that they suppress, they try to separate themselves from the body so much, it creates a kind of tension in the background. This tension is like an ominous volcano. It's literally, it's like the bucket is full. And every time you poke them, however slight, the bucket is just, it needs to erupt, it has to. But it doesn't, it's not about erupting once or twice or 3 times. It has to be a continuous eruption.
Mm-hmm.
But the narcissist doesn't do that, because as soon as you trigger the narcissist, he projects his problems onto you. You are the source of that. So he tries to control you, to fix you,
Mm-hmm.
because the narcissist decided that whatever his body says, it doesn't exist. So whatever he feels, the narcissist, you must be responsible. You must be the source. Because here everything's perfect, everything's fine. I don't have any problems.
Yeah. Yeah. For instance, it sounds like a caricature, but I remember working with a particular very highly strung, angry chef. And whenever I was in his aura or in his orbit, I felt completely endangered. And I don't know why, but I could feel like this seething rage underneath. And if I did something he perceived to be wrong, he would just like lash out and project all his stuff onto me, even though I wasn't, you know? And it's kind of like no matter what you do, it's wrong. And you're always treading on eggshells around this person, you know?
Yes.
And that's no way to live. That's not healthy, you know? You shouldn't feel like another human is like this predator who's going to eat you alive. That's not healthy.
Yeah. They used to be called vampires, psychic vampires.
Right.
That metaphor used to be used because you either you submit and you avoid anything that could potentially trigger them,
Yeah.
or they will assault you, they will wage war on you.
Yeah.
You will become their enemy.
Yeah.
Because
So
the enemy is within, but they have decided to deny that.
yeah. So you're not allowed your personal independence or opinion on anything around them. you can't be yourself around them, because that's, in a way, that's kind of threatening you, because you might be endangering yourself. You know, you might be on the receiving end of the rage, or retaliation, rage, smear campaigning, um, projection, and even the most insidious thing, which is the gaslighting, which is making you doubt your own perceptions and reality and feelings. And do you want to talk a bit more about gaslighting, and how this, gradually erodes the individual?
Yeah. The thing with a narcissist is a lot of the time they don't know they're gaslighting you, because they're gaslighting you as much as they gaslight themselves. They are so, the whole narcissism as a thing, as an entity, clinical entity, it's a survival mechanism. This whole gaslighting thing is all about lying to themselves so they can avoid accountability for any problem they might have. Because the thing about narcissists, if you are around a narcissist, there's something I call the sad baby syndrome. You feel like the narcissist needs help. You feel like there's something wrong, and they're very sad. There's something very, very fragile about them. And that's because they have been traumatized really extremely. So when we talk about these very horrible people, they're actually the biggest victims. They have been traumatized so completely, they've been annihilated, destroyed. Nothing's left, really. It's just an empty shell. And that's why everything is so automated, robotic, because the one who's supposed to be in charge, who's supposed to care about themselves, the soul, has been deactivated. The attachment to the self, it has been deactivated, given up. So everything you see, all the responses, is always automatic. That's why they're so predictable. And with the gaslighting, you can also predict when they're going to gaslight you. If you spend some time with them, most people say, oh, so unpredictable. Fuck, no. They're the most predictable people I know. Come on. They're so predictable. It's always the same script. That's why wherever they are in the world, it's always the same responses. People always report the same behaviors over and over. And that's because there's not a person behaving that. It's the brain. It did this defense mechanism. Well, if that happens, I always have to do that. And there's no other option.
So it's kind of like an Agent Smith program, like in the Matrix, when all the agents kind of hijack other people and then they turn into agents themselves.
Exactly. They need you to turn to an agent like them. They actually do.
Yeah.
That's actually how they are created in the first place, because their parents made that on them. They destroyed them, like when Agent Smith puts his hand into Neo, and Neo freezes, and because Neo, he just gives up. There's nothing he can do in that moment.
Yeah.
And he dies.
Yeah.
He becomes an Agent Smith.
Yeah.
A copy. Because it's the only way he can win.
Yeah. Yeah. Ironically. And that does backfire. In the end, all the agents explode, and then nothing's left but,
Well, if it were so easy in real life, that would be great. Because every child of a narcissist.
Yeah. It's almost, you have to become a selfless Christ.
The martyr complex.
The martyr, yeah, essentially. And completely become their extension. Because otherwise, what else do you do?
Either become my extension, become me, or I will destroy you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I call this the dead mother syndrome. I mean, Sambandin also uses this term, the dead mother. She's the dead mother.
Okay.
So she's dead because she killed herself. Like I said before, the child gives up, but the mind is still working.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you give up. You still think thoughts. There's still reactivity. The system responds to everything that stimulates you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that keeps going, but the person is essentially dead.
Mm.
So whatever you see from the narcissists, if you try to appeal to them, if you try to negotiate with them, if you try to reason with them, you're not reasoning with someone. You're not negotiating with anybody. There's no one home. It's just a dead mother, if it's mother, which in most cases it is. And if it's not the mother, then the father will take the mother role, because mother is, why do I say mother? Because when you're a child, you need an attachment figure to regulate your needs, because you're helpless. You can't regulate your own needs. The narcissist does the same thing to you. You become his mother. You regulate their needs, because there's nobody there to regulate anything for the narcissist. That's why every reaction is so automatic as well. There's no regulator. It's dead.
Yeah. Wow. So what is the solution? I mean, apart from,
Stay away.
Yeah, stay away.
That's what they all say. Basically, what the narcissist has to do, they have to, you said it before, become Jesus Christ. Closer to the truth, actually, when you think, because Jesus died, but then he was resurrected.
Yeah.
The narcissist needs to be resurrected.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And also, in terms of society, it's, since it is all pervasive, like a bad cologne, and that you get on an airplane, or like a cough, or like, oh, someone coughed on me and now I have the same cough, and it's kind of almost unavoidable, or it's can you go more into depth about this wetico term, because that seems to be what it is essentially. It sounds very it almost sounds like something supernatural.
They call it the Vetico virus because it's essentially psychic vampirism. That was the original term, actually.
Okay.
They used to call them vampires because, like the baby, I used this example before, they need you to regulate their needs. They need someone to give them a someone. They need an ego, basically. So when the spiritual gurus, they tell you to have an ego death, the narcissist needs an ego resurrection. It's already dead.
Yeah.
That's why there's no hope as long as that's the case. Other people, other mental disorders, borderline included, there's still somebody there. There's still someone regulating. Like if you feel something, there's still a sense of agency. Like I can choose how I'm going to respond. It feels very painful for the borderline. He's very dysregulated, or she, but can still decide what to do, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. But narcissist doesn't have a decision making. It's a puppet completely. And with the Vetico virus, the psychic vampirism origin is in the childhood extension of a mother. The child becomes an extension, and then it's supposed to separate from her. It's supposed to leave the womb. I call this the mother space, the womb space.
Yeah.
You're supposed to leave it. You're supposed to attach as opposed to, first you attach to your mother, of course. You have to, no matter what happens. But if something goes wrong there, if your mother does not attach to you, for example, if she doesn't care about you, if she doesn't mirror you, doesn't validate you, then this process gets stunted and the child gets stuck. This is where the narcissist is created, but also other disorders. Depending on the severity, this is where psychic vampirism has its origin, in my opinion. But the psychic vampire, he's stuck in the womb, he needs to get out, he can't, he doesn't know how to, so he's looking for someone to be his extension, because otherwise he simply cannot be, he can't sustain himself. He feels like the baby. Of course, he's an adult. Physically, he can do everything that you and I can do. Mentally, he can also do the same. But emotionally, he's completely stuck. He feels what the baby is feeling. He just hasn't grown out of that phase. So psychic vampires are infantile. They are extremely fragile. They're helpless, sad little babies. They're powerless. Not for any physical reasons, not for any intellectual reasons. This is where we go into the subconscious and talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the origin of all this is, well, it's similar to the Teal Swan video on psychic vampirism. Is essentially they are disconnected from their own source. It's because the soul, as you said, the soul has been deactivated, and that soul does not have that connection to the source.
Yeah.
So you're completely in the dark, essentially, and you need another source of supply, you know, to harvest on that, essentially.
The funny thing is, as she also mentioned in her video, psychic vampires don't actually take anything from you. They do what they actually do, they put their disease into you. That's what cuts you off like them, so you feel drained like they do. They are the ones assuming that everyone else is draining them. If you think about it, they become the hermits that you see online. The people who completely isolate themselves, who say, I need to go into the forest, I can't be with people, because they are cut off and they need to give you their disease. Because they think you're the one doing all of this to them. And of course, when you having the disease, you feel what they feel, and then you need to get away from them, so you stop feeling that. Because we are mirroring each other all the time in social interactions. It's how we cooperate, it's how we work together. The brain is wired that way. And how does the psychic vampire, how do they get out of this? They need to separate and individuate, like what Sam Bagman says, what all these literature is saying. They basically need to separate from the womb. They need to self-generate. And to self-generate, they simply have to turn off, overcome all these processes that are blocking the light that they have to receive. And what are these processes? We could really make a whole video on that, on all the processes that are blocking the flow of energy that you feel when you are around the vampire.
Wow.
They dump their shit onto you and they feel better. It's not that they get energy from you. They got rid of their problem. Temporarily.
It's kind of like a prison break game, and there are many levels till you finally break free.
Yeah. It's very important that you know how to protect yourself, that you don't allow yourself to become enmeshed, to be the extension, unless there's no other choice.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Enmeshment is a big thing, and in many cultures, it's just part of the way things are. Like South American cultures or some Mediterranean cultures, everyone's just on top of each other, and they're like zero boundaries, and that's just the normal the normal thing. The complete blurring of individuality from the collective, you know. So it becomes almost like a herd mentality,
Yeah.
hive mind, you know. I mean, is the hive mind mentality comparable to narcissism itself?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Some Wagner calls this the beehive.
the
The
beehive.
narcissist brain is like a beehive.
Yeah,
Um, each little hole for the bee honey
yeah.
is a voice of some other person.
Mm.
His brain is just collected voices,
Hmm.
because there's no internal voice, right? It's dead. So he goes around, and his reactive body intelligence is telling her, look, this, I like this, so take it, and it's yours.
Mm.
The shapeshifter he becomes. That's
Yeah.
why they're very good actors,
Mm.
because that's what they do. They take from others what they don't have,
Yeah.
they change it up, they mutate it, and then they use it against other people to gain their goals, which is supply, sex, money, and admiration, and acceptance, and validation. And they need this validation constantly, because their own brain, because they're psychic vampires, every time they validate themselves, a
Mm-hmm.
voice of their tyrannical mother is saying, no, that's not good enough. You
Mm.
have to do better. So they're perfectionists,
Perfectionists.
and they expect you to be perfect as well.
Perfectionism. Yeah.
They project that perfectionism onto everyone around them. They need everything to be perfect.
No. Well, that was a perfect part one of our video series, I must say. And yeah, to be continued into part two.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
We'll see you in part 2.
Yeah. See you in part two. Thank you.